Welcome to the channel. Haha. We are so glad you're joining us for this deep dive. Because today, we're talking about something that is, I think, maybe the single most frustrating problem for English learners. You know the feeling, right? You can read, you can write, you understand everything you hear. But then someone asks you a question.
And the mind just goes blank.
Completely blank. It's
Yeah.
like all the words you know just disappear. And you're just standing there in silence.
That mental freeze is so real, and it's a huge obstacle that millions of learners face. So our mission today isn't just to talk about it.
Right.
We're going to unpack exactly why it happens, and more importantly, how to get to that point where you can talk English without all that thinking.
Without the overthinking, yeah.
And this deep dive, it's not about memorizing more words or studying, another grammar book.
Oh, good.
What we really want you to understand is that this has nothing to do with how smart you are. It's not a measure of your intelligence. It's about training your brain.
Like going to the gym, but for your mouth.
Exactly, like training a muscle. We're going to look at how we can strategically move English from being this difficult subject you study
With all the rules and exceptions.
to an automatic habit, something natural.
A habit. That's a really powerful way to think about it. Because habits are, well, they're automatic. You don't have to think about them at all.
You don't. Habits don't require any conscious thought. I mean, think about it. You don't wake up and perform some complex calculation to figure out how to brush your teeth, or how to walk, or tie your shoes. You just do it. It's automated. And that's the goal here, to make speaking English feel that natural, that fast.
Okay, I'm already feeling less pressure. So where do we start?
Well, let's start with the pain point, the struggle. Because I think your experience is one a lot of people are going to recognize.
Oh, definitely. I think everyone listening will relate to this.
Yeah.
I used to think so much before speaking English, and every second counted.
You're not alone in that at all. That whole internal process you're about to describe, that's the biggest trap.
It felt like trying to run a race through thick mud. It was so slow. So my process was, I would first think of the entire sentence in my native language, in Hindi.
Okay.
Then I'd try to translate it word for word into English.
Right, the direct translation.
Then I'd stop and check the grammar in my head. Is the tense right? Is the preposition correct? Then I'd start worrying about my pronunciation.
So you have all these layers of checking and rechecking.
Exactly. And by the time I finally opened my mouth to speak, the conversation had already moved on.
And that's it. That hesitation, the stopping, the broken sentences, that's what happens when the what we call the cognitive load gets too high.
The what?
The cognitive load. It's like the amount of mental effort your brain is using at one time, and yours was through the roof.
It felt like it. I was so focused on getting it perfect. Perfect sentences, perfect grammar.
And the result was?
Silence. Total silence most of the time.
And that internal checking, that's something we learn in school, where you get graded on accuracy above everything else. But conversation doesn't work that way.
No, it really doesn't. My biggest frustration was just the speed. I knew the words. I really did. But they just wouldn't come out in time.
And that time delay is exactly what happens when you try to use your native language, your L1, as a bridge to English, your L2. It's just not an efficient system.
It's like taking the long, winding road instead of the highway.
A very, very long road. Because when you translate word for word, you often end up using sentence structures that are, well, they're just not natural in English. Your L1 structure interferes with your L2 output.
Can you give an example of that interference?
Sure. I mean, every language organizes ideas differently. A classic example is with German speakers. In German, the verb can sometimes come at the very end of a sentence. So a direct translation might sound like, the man who the dog saw was old. It makes sense in German, but in English, it's just wrong. You're not just swapping words. You're trying to force one language's blueprint onto another.
I see. And for Hindi speakers?
A simple one we see a lot is with prepositions. In many Indian languages, the equivalent of a preposition comes after the noun.
A postposition, right?
Exactly. So someone might translate directly and say, I am going the market to, instead of I am going to the market. The Hindi is literally telling their brain to put the word in the wrong place for English.
That makes so much sense. My own language was actively working against me.
It was. And on top of all that technical stuff, you have these huge psychological barriers.
The fear.
The fear is massive. Research on this is very clear. The biggest barrier for learners is high anxiety. We're talking around 64% of learners in some studies.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. Right behind that is a lack of confidence at 61%, and then the fear of making mistakes at 57%.
So it's not really about knowledge. Because these people, they know the grammar, they know the words. It's the mental block.
It's entirely the mental block. It's the worry about being judged.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to completely change our perspective on mistakes.
Right, yeah.
Every single mistake is not a failure. It is a step forward. It's data for your brain.
I like that. Data.
Think about little kids learning to talk. They say the most wonderfully weird, grammatically broken things.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they do.
But they speak with so much confidence because they just want to communicate. They're not worried about being perfect. They learn by making mistakes. And as adults, we have to relearn that lesson.
So fluency first, then accuracy.
Fluency first, accuracy follows. It's a mantra. It takes the pressure off immediately. If you wait until your English is perfect, you will never, ever speak.
Okay, so that's the mindset shift. How do we start actually training the brain to skip that translation step?
We shift our focus completely. Away from single words, away from grammar rules and isolation.
And towards what?
Towards ready-made language. And this brings us to one of the most powerful ideas in language learning today. Useful daily chunks.
Chunks. Not words, but chunks.
Exactly. Or, as the research calls them, formulaic sequences.
That sounds a bit technical.
It does, but the idea is simple. Fluent speakers, whether they're native or not, they don't build sentences one word at a time from a mental rulebook.
They don't.
No. They think and speak in phrases, in prepackaged, ready-made units of language.
So why is learning a phrase better than just learning the words in it?
It's all about making things easier for your brain. It's about cognitive efficiency. I mean, think about it. If you're a beginner, your brain is doing so much work for every sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It's choosing a verb, then a tense, then a subject, a preposition. It's exhausting. But if your brain has stored a whole chunk, like at the end of the day, as one single item,
Just pulls it from memory.
instantly.
Instantly. It's stored in your long-term memory as a single unit. You're basically outsourcing all that hard grammatical work to your memory. So you're reducing that, what was it, the cognitive pressure?
Exactly,
Yeah.
the cognitive load. If you can just retrieve a whole chunk, like, if I were you, or that's a good idea, you don't have to build it from scratch. It makes your speaking fast effortless.
I get it. So stop learning lists of single words and start learning clusters of words that always go together. Actually, let me try to remember some common ones I hear all the time.
Good idea.
Like people always say, I think so, or it depends.
Perfect examples, and you should focus on the ones that research shows are used most often in conversation. That's where you get the biggest payoff.
So what are some of the most common ones?
Well, there are phrases like the ones you said. I think so. It depends. Also, things like, let me see. I'm not sure, as a matter of fact.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, is a good one.
Or even just simple ones like, basically, these little phrases are so valuable. They're communicative, so they help you manage the conversation. If you say, let me see, it signals you need a second to think.
Right, it buys you time.
Exactly. And they help with production. They reduce that thinking time. And they're also a learning strategy because they give you a model of correct grammar.
I've noticed people use and basically a
Yeah.
lot. It's like conversational oil. It keeps things running smoothly while you figure out your next big thought.
That's a great way to put it. They prevent that awkward silence. They let you hold your turn in the conversation without just saying,
Okay, what about other types of chunks?
Another huge category, one that learners often find tricky, is phrasal verbs.
Oh, I hate phrasal verbs like put on, look up, come up with.
Many people struggle with them because the meaning isn't obvious from the individual words. Look up doesn't just mean to look in an upward direction.
Right, it means to search for information.
Exactly. And that's why you have to learn look up as a single unit, a single idea. And research shows these are used constantly in natural conversation. If you can automate them, your English will instantly sound more natural.
Okay, that makes sense. Learn it as one thing.
And here's what's really interesting. Learning in chunks also improves your accuracy, but without you even thinking about grammar.
How does that work?
Okay, take the word interested. A learner might translate from their language and say, I'm interested about history or interested on history.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But if you learn the chunk interested in, you automatically get the preposition right every single time. The correct grammar is baked into the phrase. You don't have to stop and think, which preposition goes with interested?
You just know it's interested in. Wow. So instead of trying to build the sentence, I want to say my opinion,
Which is clunky and slow.
just learn the chunk, in my opinion. And it comes out perfectly.
Instantly. It creates flow.
Yeah.
You reduce the pauses, the hesitation, because the chunk is a complete grammatically correct thought. It's ready to go.
This is a game changer. So let's get into the practical steps. How do we do this? What are the core strategies?
Okay, let's do a deep dive into the strategy. Here are 5 simple, practical points to train your brain to speak automatically.
I'm ready.
Point number 1 is foundational. Speak in short and simple sentences. Simple English is powerful English.
I think this is where I failed completely. I always tried to use big, complicated words. I wanted to sound smart, you know.
Everyone does. It's a natural desire. But it's so counterproductive when you're building fluency, trying to use complex vocabulary and long, winding sentences. It just creates so much pressure on your brain.
It's that cognitive load thing again.
It's all about cognitive load.
Mhm.
Your working memory can only handle so much at once. When you try to build a complex sentence, you're trying to remember the vocabulary, apply advanced grammar rules, monitor your pronunciation, all at the same time.
And then the system crashes.
The system crashes. You hesitate, you get confused, you go silent. So you have to focus on safety first.
Safety.
Your brain needs to feel safe. And it feels safe with simple English. Clear, short sentences. Subject, verb, object. I went to the store. I bought milk. I came home.
That sounds too simple.
It's not. It's clear. It's fast. And it builds confidence. Speed and continuous speech matter so much more than complexity at the beginning.
So clarity over complexity.
Always. Start simple. Once you can speak freely and quickly with simple sentences, complexity will follow naturally. But you have to build that foundation of confidence first. Instead of trying to say, I believe that due to the rapid pace of technological innovation, it is prudent for us to consider.
Yeah, that's me.
Just say, technology is changing fast. We need to think about the future. Same message, zero strain on your brain.
Okay, point 1, keep it simple. I can do that. What's next?
Point 2, stop translating from your native language.
The big one.
This is a habit you absolutely must break. As we said, your native language, your L1 in English, your L2, live in different parts of your brain. And your L1 is dominant.
It's been there longer.
Much longer. And every time you translate, you're just making that L1 part stronger. You're reinforcing the habit of relying on it.
So you never give the English part of the brain a chance to grow and become independent.
Exactly. You have to force it to work on its own. And the most practical way to do this is to change the way you use a dictionary.
How so?
You must stop using bilingual dictionaries, the ones that give you the Hindi word for the English word.
But how else do I learn what a word means? Especially at the beginning.
That's a fair question. For absolute, day one beginners, a bilingual dictionary might be necessary for a short time. But as soon as you can, you have to switch.
Switch to what?
To an English learner's dictionary, like Longman or Merriam-Webster. These dictionaries don't give you the translation. They give you the definition in simple, easy-to-understand English.
Oh, I see.
So if you look up a word like wander, it will tell you to move from place to place without a specific purpose.
And what if I don't know a word in the definition, like purpose?
Then you look up purpose in the same English dictionary.
It sounds like a lot more work. It's so much faster to just check the Hindi meaning.
It is more work up front, but it's absolutely necessary if you want to be fast later. You are forcing your brain to build connections inside the English language system.
You're not letting it take the easy way out by jumping back to Hindi.
You're cutting the cord, and this directly affects what's happening inside your brain. There's a model that suggests when you think of a concept, your brain activates all the related words in both of your languages at the same time.
So they're competing with each other.
They're competing. It's an internal battle. And that competition causes hesitation and errors. By cutting out the translation, you reduce that competition. You let the English word win faster.
Let English think in English.
Oh.
Okay, that makes sense. What's point 3?
Point 3, use common sentence patterns daily. This is about mastering those formulaic sequences we talked about.
So going deeper on the chunks.
Exactly. Fluent speakers automatically retrieve these pre-made chunks. This gives them a huge processing advantage and makes them sound so effortless.
It's like having a bunch of pre-built components instead of having to make every single part from scratch.
That's a perfect analogy. And research shows that actively noticing these chunks is key.
Noticing. What do you mean by that?
It means you don't just passively hear them. When you're watching a movie or listening to a podcast, you actively pay attention. When someone says, as a matter of fact, you notice how they used it. What was the context? What came before and after?
So you become a language detective.
You do. And then you have to rehearse them. It's not enough to just notice them.
So if I learn a phrase like in a nutshell, I shouldn't just memorize what it means. I should practice using it, basically.
Yes, basically. You have to use it. Put it in a sentence when you're writing. Try to use it when you're speaking to yourself. That's how you move it from your passive vocabulary, words you recognize, to your active vocabulary.
Words you can actually use without thinking.
Exactly. And the number of these chunks in real speech is it's staggering. Some studies suggest that over half of everything we say in casual conversation is made up of these formulaic sequences.
Over 50%.
Over 50%. So if you can automate even a small number of the most common ones, you've just made 50% of your speaking effortless.
Wow. That's a huge return on investment.
Think about I was wondering if it's a polite, slightly complex structure, but if you learn it as one unit, you can make sophisticated requests perfectly every time without thinking about the grammar at all.
Okay, I'm sold on chunks. What is point 4?
Point 4 is a big one for the mind. Don't wait for perfect grammar.
Ah, the dragon of perfectionism.
It's a dragon that slays fluency. If you wait until your English is perfect, you will never speak. It's that simple.
I used to hate being corrected, especially in front of other people. I'd rather just stay silent.
Of course, that feeling of embarrassment, it's paralyzing. It's what researchers call the fear of negative evaluation. You think every mistake is a judgment on your intelligence.
It really feels that way sometimes.
We have to change that mindset. English is a tool for communication. It's not a test. If the other person understands your message, you have succeeded.
Even if the grammar wasn't 100% correct.
Even if the grammar was 80% correct, or 60, as long as the message got through.
So we have to see mistakes as just data points, not failures.
Exactly. Confidence doesn't come from being perfect. Confidence comes from speaking despite the imperfections. You build it by speaking a lot.
But don't fluent speakers correct their mistakes?
They do, but it's different. A highly proficient speaker can often feel a mistake coming and self-correct it smoothly, sometimes even before the word comes out. I went to the store. The market.
Right.
But for a beginner, trying to do that just adds more pressure. It increases the cognitive load again and stops the flow.
So just let the mistakes happen.
At first, yes. Get the message out. Focus on output. Once you have a steady flow of speech, your brain will naturally start to notice and refine things over time. But you have to build the flow first.
Okay, that's a relief. And what's the last point? Point 5.
Point 5 is the most practical of all. Practice speaking every single day for at least 5 minutes.
Every day.
Consistency beats intensity. An hour once a week is not as good as 5 minutes every day. Speaking is a physical skill. Your mouth, your tongue, your jaw,
Yeah.
they are muscles.
And they need a daily workout. It really is muscle memory.
It is. Silence does not improve speaking. Only speaking improves speaking. And I have 2 very specific high-impact techniques for this.
Okay.
The first one is called shadowing.
I've heard of this. One more thing. Does shadowing actually work? It sounds so difficult. You're listening and speaking at the same time.
It is difficult at first, but it is one of the most powerful fluency builders there is. You take a short piece of audio, a podcast clip, a speech, and you listen to it. And you speak along with it at the same time like a shadow.
You try to copy everything.
Everything, the speed, the rhythm, the intonation. You don't stop to think about the meaning, you just mimic the sounds.
Why that's so effective?
Because it completely bypasses the part of your brain that is trying to think of what to say. You're only focused on the physical act of articulation. It builds a direct, automatic link between the sounds you hear and the movements your mouth makes.
It's pure muscle memory training.
And the data on it is incredible. In one study, a group that practiced shadowing nearly doubled their fluency score, measured in words per minute, compared to a group that didn't. It's a massive improvement in speed.
So what if it's too fast for me at the beginning?
Start slow. Find audio for learners. Or just use the speed control on YouTube and slow it down to 0.75 speed. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's just to keep your mouth moving continuously.
Okay, that's shadowing. What's the second technique?
The second technique is speaking alone or thinking in English out loud. This one gets rid of the excuse, I have no one to practice with.
I've used that excuse many times.
We all have. For 5 or 10 minutes a day, you just talk to yourself out loud.
About what?
You need a simple structure. So, for example, you can describe what you did yesterday, what you're doing right now, and what you plan to do tomorrow. This forces you to practice past, present, and future tenses.
Oh, that's a good framework.
Or you can pick a random topic, like coffee, and talk about the pros and cons for 5 minutes. Or just describe an object in your room in as much detail as you can.
That structure is so important. It gives your brain a specific job to do instead of just vaguely thinking in English.
Exactly. It trains your brain to create the message directly in English, cutting out that Hindi middleman completely. And one last thing on this point. Combine this practice with smart vocabulary learning.
What do you mean by smart?
Don't just reread your vocabulary lists. That's passive. Use active recall.
So, like, testing yourself.
Yes. Cover up the English word and force your brain to remember it from the definition. That effort of retrieving the word is what makes the memory strong. And do it with spaced repetition.
Viewing it over time.
Reviewing it at increasing intervals. Today, tomorrow, in 3 days, in a week. This moves the word from your short-term to your long-term memory, so it's ready for you to use instantly when you speak.
That is a complete toolkit.
Wow, it is. Now, you want to try a quick drill?
Not right now.
Right now, a mini practice section.
Right.
The only rule is you have to respond immediately. No thinking, no translating, just flow.
Okay, I'll try. Flow is the goal, not perfection.
That's the mindset. Ready?
I think so.
Okay, question 1. Do you think it is important for everyone to learn a second language? Quick opinion.
I think so, because as a matter of fact, it opens your mind to new cultures, but I guess it depends on the person's goals.
Perfect. See that? You responded instantly, and you used 3 chunks. I think so, as a matter of fact, and it depends. That created flow.
Yeah.
No long, awkward pause.
It felt faster.
It was. Okay, question 2. What's one thing you like about the city you live in? Short, simple answer.
Basically, I like the energy of the city. You know, there's always something happening. I'm not sure I could live in a quiet place, to be honest.
Excellent again. You use basically, I'm not sure. The words just float out. The speed, the confidence. That's what we're aiming for.
Okay, this is actually working.
One more. A little more complex.
Right.
If you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
Oh, if I could travel anywhere, I would. I would definitely go to Japan. I think the culture there is just so fascinating,
Very good. You use that whole chunk, if I could travel anywhere, I would. You didn't have to build that difficult conditional sentence from scratch. You just pulled the pattern from memory.
It just came out.
It did. The only small thing I'd note is that you used I think, and, again, maybe try to have another chunk ready, like at the end of the day, just to mix it up.
Right. I need to expand my library of ready-to-use chunks so I don't always use the same one.
Exactly. But you see how it works. You feel that pressure lifting off your brain. That's what automatization feels like.
It really does. So let's wrap this all up.
Okay, let's bring it all together. To conclude, let's just quickly summarize the 3 big mindset shifts you need to make this happen. To move English from a subject to a habit.
Okay.
Number 1, fluency comes from consistent daily practice, even just 5 minutes. Make it a habit.
Like brushing your teeth.
Exactly. Number 2, mistakes are not failures. They are normal, necessary steps. You have to accept them.
Let go of the fear.
And number 3, confidence is more important than perfection. You build confidence by speaking a lot, not by speaking perfectly.
And practically speaking, the key is to speak slowly but continuously. Don't allow those long pauses for translation. Use a simple chunk to fill the gap and keep moving.
Precisely. That moment when the words start coming out automatically, that's not magic. It's the result of all these small, brave, daily actions. Your future fluent self is being built right now by speaking simply and imperfectly today.
You have to make the language feel alive inside you.
You do. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what's really fascinating is how much power these small language chunks actually hold. We said they make up over half of all conversations.
That's a huge insight.
It changes how you should think about fluency. It's not about knowing thousands of rare words. It's about how quickly and automatically you can use the common words and phrases you already know. It's about speed of access, not volume of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a final thought for everyone listening to take away.
Okay.
Tonight or tomorrow, find 5 minutes of natural English conversation, a movie, a podcast, anything, and just listen with a new goal. Count how many of these formulaic sequences you hear. I was wondering if, at the end of the day, it seems to me that
Just count the chunks.
just count them, the number will be much higher than you think. And that should be incredibly motivating because it proves that fluency isn't some impossible mountain to climb. It's about automating a small set of very common, very useful tools that you already have access to.
That's a brilliant way to end. We really hope this deep dive helps you move English from being a struggle to being a habit. Be brave, keep it simple, and start your 5 minutes of practice today. Thanks for watching and listening. If you like this deep dive, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel.
Keep practicing those chunks, embrace your mistakes, and remember, consistency always wins.